No, I'm on a mission to profile the whole world, and in a way, it's become like a curation, a digital curation project. There's a lot of young players that they're just jumping right into digital, and they didn't start with tubes and that whole thing. And so, in a way, how does anyone know what a steel string singer sounds like? An ODS or something. I mean, I've never played real Dumbles, so I'm relying on the clones. And if you haven't even played the clones, you're just relying on what someone says or a YouTube video. So, in a weird way, being able to play the profiles, it preserves the sound in a way. And I think especially with like some of these old Fenders, like there's Fenders from '48 and '49, and I've tried. There's no examples of like original condition ones, and people didn't treat them well. And what do those things really sound like? Well, we have a guess, but the Kemper provides an interesting way of like preserving the tone of things forever. I think, which is it's a cool thing.
Yeah, I completely identify with that because what drew me to the Kemper was exactly that. The fact that I've never played a real AC30 before. I
Yeah.
played an AC15, whether it be a Chinese one or, a 62 or something. I've never played one. I don't know anyone that owns one. And so for me, when am I going to get the chance to, get a 100-pound amp, carry it up the stairs to my apartment and be able to play it? It's never
Yeah.
going to happen. So for me, I looked at the Kemper like, well, here's a chance. I had a Helix. I think before I got the Kemper, I had the Helix for about 2 years. And so the Helix, so I know what the AC30 and the Helix sounds like. I know what various modelers sound like, but I've never played a real AC30. So I can't sit here and go, it sounds just like an AC30 because I've never played one.
Right. Sure.
So for me, the draw with the Kemper was going, well, wait, this is supposed to be, pretty much as close as you can get to a 1-to-1 of the actual amp in question. I want to hear for myself, what does an AC30 sound like?
Right.
What does, a vintage Tweed, what does, and obviously the list goes on and on. So for me, the Kemper was kind of that gateway where I could go, listen, I know I'm never going to be able to play these real amps. I mean, maybe I will someday, but, it doesn't seem likely, especially something like the steel string singer, like you mentioned. Those are amps that most people will never be able to play. So the Kemper has a huge draw.
Yeah, I think there's 12 steel string singers or something, like maybe 15. So, and some are
John Mayer
unaccounted
probably
for.
has half of them.
He does actually. He has like 4 or 5. But he may have more. He's got And then number 1 is SRVs, and they don't really know what happened to it. They think Jimmy has it. They think his brother Jimmy has it, but
that makes sense.
Nobody really knows. Pretty much the people who have them are John, one or two other people, and then the people they were originally made for.
Yeah.
The owners that never sold them. Yeah, what you're saying is so true, man. It's in this process, I've been able to buy and just acquire so many amps, and they pass through my fingers. I can't keep them all, so they're sort of here with me for a little bit, enough to get to know them, to profile them, and get them out. But it's an incredible, rich history of like tone, and they're just these weird, fascinating machines, that they really are from another time, but we've hung on to them, and it's like this piece of the past, and in some cases, in some ways, it's kind of like the guitars too, You see a Strat, and it's like, is it vintage looking? Is it modern looking? It's sort of just this timeless thing, and a lot of the amps are. The components of them, I mean, people don't think about this, but, they're covered in Tolex and Tweed because that's what they made suitcases out of, and they just made them to look like suitcases. Like, people carry briefcases. Now they'll carry an amp. And it was just total, they're made of wood because that's what was around. And plexis were plexiglass because nobody had invented plastic yet, and they used some metal, but metal's heavy and it was kind of expensive. It's just like, you just used what you had around. I mean, it really is like the way they make a crate amp today, or I shouldn't even say crate amp. The way they make a Helix or a Kemper, it's made out of like modern material, It's like plastic. No one gets upset that it's plastic or whatever because that's just what we use to make stuff. It's a weird it's a weird world, tube amps, and people have weird attitudes towards them, and they're big and heavy and loud, and they break all the time. But they're wonderful. They really are. I'm a big fan of tube amps.
Yeah. There's so much you just said that I want to get into. So you kind of alluded to a lot of